Ethan stumbled through the desert-like plains of the alien planet, sweat dripping from his brow, though the air was thinner than he had ever felt on Earth. His shuttle had been destroyed weeks ago, and now he scavenged for food and water, relying on his instincts and the survival training he had received as a human explorer. The sun burned hot during the day, turning the pale sands into blinding white, while at night freezing winds cut through the thin layers of clothing he had. Every step was a struggle, every breath a test of endurance, but Ethan had learned early on that giving up meant death. He paused near a rocky outcrop to catch his breath, scanning the horizon. That's when he heard it, a faint, muffled sound coming from beneath the sand. It was soft, barely audible over the wind, but it carried a tone of distress that immediately pulled at something inside him. He knelt down, brushing his gloved hands over the grains. The sand was warm, yet something beneath it was moving, trying desperately to get out. Ethan's heart raced. "Someone's down there," he muttered. He grabbed his small survival knife and began digging, not caring if the sand cut at his hands. Every scoop revealed more of the struggling figure, and soon he realized it was not human. The skin was a pale shade of lilac, smooth and almost glowing faintly in the dim light. The figure was a young girl, barely older than 16, her slender body covered in dust and sand. Her large eyes, violet and wide with fear, met Ethan's as he pulled away the last of the debris. "Hey, you're safe now," Ethan said softly, lowering himself so his face was level with hers. He scanned her for injuries, cuts and bruises, some scratches from the sand, but nothing broken. "Can you move?" She shook her head weakly, her breathing shallow. Ethan carefully lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than a human of the same age, but that did not make her any less fragile. He noticed a strange insignia on her chest, a series of geometric patterns etched faintly into her skin, glowing ever so slightly. He had no idea what it meant, but he guessed it was something of importance in her culture. He carried her toward a rocky overhang that offered some shade. The sandstorm in the distance was growing stronger, and he knew staying exposed would be deadly. He set her down gently and retrieved a water container from his pack, holding it to her lips. She drank slowly, coughing and spluttering, her tiny hands gripping his wrists. Siblings," she whispered in broken words, pointing at the horizon. Ethan frowned. "Your siblings did this?" She nodded, her voice trembling. Her gestures were hesitant, but he could understand the meaning. She had been buried alive by her own family. Ethan's jaw tightened. Humans were capable of cruelty, yes, but he had never imagined a society where children would be subjected to such treatment by their own kin. "Don't worry. I'll make sure nothing else happens to you," he promised, more to himself than to her. The wind picked up, carrying stinging grains of sand. Ethan wrapped a thin cloth around her, shielding her face as best as he could, and helped her to her feet. Together, they began the slow journey toward what Ethan hoped was a safe place, the alien colony he had spotted from a distance days earlier. The terrain was unforgiving, filled with sharp rocks and sudden drops. But Lyra, he learned her name from a simple translator he carried, leaned on him, trusting him completely. As they walked, she began to communicate more clearly. Her voice was soft, melodic, filled with both fear and awe. She spoke of the events leading up to her near death. Her siblings, she explained, were ambitious and cruel, determined to claim leadership over their family's small colony. She had challenged them in minor ways, not out of rebellion, but simply because she could not follow their harsh rules. That had been enough for them to consider her unfit to live. Ethan listened silently, anger and disbelief swirling inside him. He had faced hostile environments and dangerous creatures, but he had never encountered human or alien malice like this. Yet seeing Lyra's quiet resilience sparked something within him. She was frightened, but she had survived. That survival alone made her remarkable, and he realized that humans, despite being weaker physically than many alien species, had a courage that could match any strength. Night fell and the temperature dropped sharply. Ethan made a small shelter from rocks and remnants of his supplies. Lyra huddled close, shivering, and he gave her his extra blanket. "You're safe here," he said. "I won't let them find you." For a while, silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant howls of alien predators. Ethan kept watch, scanning the horizon with a makeshift light. Lyra, despite exhaustion, studied him with wide eyes. There was a spark of curiosity and trust, an acknowledgement that humans, at least this one human, were capable of bravery and compassion. By the next day, Ethan knew they had to move. The colony was still many miles away, and her siblings' search party was likely mobilizing. Using natural cover, they navigated through canyons and rocky hills. Ethan taught Lyra small tricks for moving quietly and avoiding danger, improvising lessons on the spot. She was a fast learner, her memory sharp despite her trauma. He began to admire her determination. Even in the face of near death, she refused to be broken. During one dangerous stretch, they encountered a pack of native predators, creatures that resembled a cross between a canine and a lizard, moving in packs with lethal coordination. Lyra froze, terrified. Ethan pushed her behind him, using a flare to scare the creatures off. The flare burned brightly, the animals yelping before retreating into the shadows. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes, her fear mixing with admiration. "Human, brave," she whispered, a simple sentence that conveyed a great deal. They continued their journey, the terrain growing more treacherous. Ethan's muscles ached, his energy draining, but he refused to show weakness. Every step he took reinforced a silent promise. He would protect her no matter what. Along the way, they found traces of Lyra's siblings' pursuit, footprints in the sand, crude signs of markers, and disturbed rocks that hinted at the search for her. Ethan knew it was only a matter of time before they were confronted directly. As they neared the colony, Lyra began to recall the customs and defenses of her people. She spoke of secret paths and observation points that outsiders rarely knew. With Ethan's human ingenuity and her local knowledge, they devised a careful route that avoided the main roads and patrols. Yet danger still lurked. They had to cross a narrow cliffside path over a deep chasm. A misstep could mean death. Ethan went first, testing each step, and then helped Lyra across, guiding her every movement. When they reached the other side, both exhaled in relief, their bond strengthened by shared peril. Finally, from a ridge they saw it, the sprawling alien colony, its tall crystalline structures reflecting the dim sunlight. It was beautiful in a harsh alien way, but it was also a place of danger for Lyra. Her siblings' forces could be anywhere, and the city's inhabitants were suspicious of outsiders. Ethan knew they would need a plan to reach safety without drawing attention. That evening, they made camp in a shallow cave overlooking the colony. Lyra, still weak, leaned against Ethan, her trust in him absolute. "Human, good," she said softly, closing her eyes. Ethan smiled faintly, though worry gnawed at him. "We'll get through this," he promised. "I won't let them hurt you again." As night fell, the distant lights of the colony flickered like stars. Lyra's siblings, unaware of their daughter's survival, were beginning to gather forces. The story of their cruelty would soon be challenged by the resilience of a human and the courage of a young alien girl. Ethan's mind raced with plans and possibilities, knowing that the journey ahead would test both their endurance and their ingenuity. But for the first time since the shuttle crash, he felt a sense of purpose beyond survival. The chance to protect someone truly innocent, and to prove that even a single human could make a difference in a world that underestimated them. And so, with the cold night pressing in, and dangers waiting at every turn, Ethan and Lyra prepared to take the next step. Every mile brought them closer to hope, and closer to the confrontation that would decide not just Lyra's fate, but the legacy of human courage in a galaxy that rarely understood it. The night was long, the winds howling around them, but Ethan's determination never wavered. Somewhere in the colony below, her siblings were plotting, unaware that their plan had failed, and somewhere within him a quiet resolve burned. Humans might not be the strongest, but they could survive and they could save lives, no matter the odds. Ethan and Lyra spent the next morning carefully planning their approach toward the colony. From their cave, they could see the sprawling city of crystalline towers, the streets glittering under the alien sun. Ethan had studied every movement he could observe, patrols, guards, and the occasional transport carts that ferried goods and citizens. Lyra, though weak, pointed out secret paths and narrow alleys that could give them cover. "We must move slowly," Ethan said, adjusting the straps of his makeshift pack. Lyra nodded, her violet eyes wide but determined. "I know. Where to hide," she said, her small hands tracing invisible paths in the sand. It was clear she had memorized every shortcut she could remember. Her siblings' cruelty had not erased her knowledge of their world, it had sharpened it. They descended from the ridge carefully, using shadows and natural cover to avoid detection. The city's walls shimmered with reflective light, making it difficult for outsiders to blend in. But Lyra guided Ethan to a section less traveled, a narrow street between two tall, crystalline towers. Their footsteps were silent, yet every shadow seemed to hold the threat of discovery. As they moved deeper into the colony, Lyra began to regain more strength. Her steps became steadier, her voice firmer when she spoke to Ethan. She had started to trust him completely, and for the first time since she had been buried alive, she felt safe. Ethan, in turn, admired her courage. Despite everything she had suffered, she did not give in to fear. She was small and young, yet her will to survive matched his own. Suddenly, movement in the distance caught Ethan's eye. A patrol of her siblings' guards was moving in their direction, weapons scanning the streets. Ethan pressed himself against the wall, pulling Lyra close. Her eyes widened in terror. "Stay low," he whispered. They crouched, holding their breath as the patrol passed within mere feet. The tension was unbearable, but neither made a sound. Once the guards disappeared, Ethan exhaled slowly. "That was close," he said, his voice barely audible. Lyra nodded, her hands trembling slightly. They continued, weaving through alleyways and abandoned markets until they reached a small storage area behind a workshop. Ethan looked around. "We can rest here for a while, but we can't stay long," he said. Lyra sank to the floor, exhausted. She had not eaten much since her rescue, and the trauma had drained her. Ethan shared his rations with her, carefully offering water and small pieces of protein bars. She ate slowly, but every bite gave her a little more strength. While Lyra rested, Ethan observed the city. He realized that confronting her siblings directly would be dangerous. They had strength, numbers, and the advantage of knowledge about their own people. But Ethan was a human, and humans had something aliens often underestimated: ingenuity. He began to devise a plan to help Lyra reclaim her position without risking her life unnecessarily. Using distractions, misdirection, and the natural layout of the city, he could level the playing field. By evening, Lyra was ready to move again. Ethan led her through the labyrinthine alleys to the edge of the central plaza, where her siblings were known to meet. They crouched behind a large crystal pillar, watching her siblings gather with other members of their family tribe. Lyra's heart pounded. She had lived in fear of this moment for weeks, yet with Ethan beside her, she felt a new kind of courage, a belief that she did not have to face them alone. Ethan whispered, "We need to make them think you are more than just a victim. Let them see that their actions failed." Lyra nodded, her resolve hardening. Together they moved stealthily across the plaza, using shadows and reflective surfaces to remain hidden. Ethan had found small pieces of debris and set them to create minor distractions. A small rock rolled down an alley, causing a guard to investigate. A flicker of light reflected across a tower, drawing attention elsewhere. Every small action gave them cover to move closer. When they were within striking distance, Ethan whispered again, "Now, you speak. Show them you are not afraid." Lyra stepped out from behind the pillar, her posture straight, her gaze fierce. Her siblings froze, shocked to see her alive, their faces twisted with a mixture of disbelief and anger. "You thought you could bury me," Lyra said, her voice strong and clear. Ethan stayed behind her, ready to intervene if needed. Her siblings' guards shifted uneasily, clearly unsure how to respond. Lyra continued, "I survived because I am not weak. I survived because someone believed in me, and I refused to be ruled by fear." The siblings hesitated. Their power relied on intimidation, but now the dynamic had shifted. Ethan had proven that humans could alter outcomes with strategy, rather than sheer force. Lyra's words, combined with Ethan's presence, challenged their authority in a way they had not anticipated. Ethan stepped forward, using a calm but firm voice. "Strength is not only about power. It's about intelligence, courage, and compassion. You may be stronger physically, but underestimating a human, any human, can be a grave mistake." The siblings glared at him, but they could not ignore the truth in his words. Every action Ethan had taken so far had outmaneuvered their patrols and traps. A tense silence followed. Then Lyra's eldest sibling stepped forward, anger and pride in their eyes. "You survive, but you do not challenge us," they shouted. Lyra held her ground. "I survived. I am not asking for your approval. I am claiming my place because I have the right to live, to choose, and to grow. I will not hide, and I will not fear you." The crowd of alien onlookers murmured, unsure how to react. Ethan had given her confidence, but it was her voice, her courage, that carried the moment. The siblings, realizing they could not intimidate her anymore, slowly stepped back. Their power had been undermined not by violence, but by the resilience and strategy of a human-alien partnership. Ethan noticed that some of the colony members were now watching with curiosity and even admiration. The idea that strength could come from intelligence and courage rather than dominance was beginning to resonate. Lyra's siblings, defeated in the court of public opinion, retreated to regroup. Lyra remained standing, a mixture of relief and triumph washing over her. "Thank you," she whispered to Ethan, her eyes shining. He nodded, a quiet smile on his face. "You did this yourself. I just helped you see that humans can do more than you think." She laughed softly, a sound of pure relief as the tension melted from her body. Over the following days, Ethan helped Lyra settle into a new role within the colony. She began quietly advocating for fair treatment and the value of intelligence, courage, and empathy. The citizens responded positively, curious about the human who had helped change their world. Ethan, meanwhile, prepared his supplies to continue his journey. The galaxy was vast, and while this chapter had ended, his mission as an explorer and protector was far from over. Before he left, Lyra hugged him tightly. "You have changed everything," she said. "Humans are stronger than we ever believed." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment he had never felt before. "Humans survive," he said simply. "And sometimes we help others survive too." The siblings, meanwhile, had learned a hard lesson. Power without wisdom, cruelty without empathy, could be overcome by courage, strategy, and unity. Lyra's survival and triumph became a story whispered throughout the colony, a tale of hope and resilience. And somewhere in the distance, Ethan's shuttle repairs were ready, supplies packed. As he prepared to continue his journey across the stars, leaving behind a colony forever changed by the courage of a single human. As Ethan departed, Lyra watched from the ridge, the wind blowing through her hair. She felt a new sense of strength, not from her siblings' approval, not from brute force, but from the knowledge that courage and wisdom could overcome even the harshest odds. The bond between her and Ethan symbolized something larger, the potential for humans to leave a lasting mark, not through domination, but through heroism, compassion, and the indomitable will to survive. And so, under alien suns and across endless plains, the story of a struggling human and a brave young alien girl became a tale of hope, a story that would be told for generations. The galaxy, vast and dangerous, had met humanity and learned a lesson. Never underestimate the courage of a human, for even in the most alien of worlds, they could make a difference.